From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. 1 week into the new year, at high noon on Tuesday, January 8th, 2019, the 111th Tennessee General Assembly will convene for the first time here in Nashville. Chairing the state Senate will be Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally from Oak Ridge. He's our guest on Inside Politics this week. Mr. Lieutenant Governor, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be with you.
You're the old veteran up there now. We have so much change going on. We have a new House Speaker, we have a new governor, new cabinet coming in, other changes in your leadership as well.
Right.
So as the grizzly veteran, what do you have to tell all these rookies coming in?
Well, some of them on the Senate side have had experience in the House. We'll have approximately 8 new members that will have a year or less of service
in the Senate. And that's quite a bit out of 33.
That's about a fourth. And then the on the House side, I think there's about 30, I believe.
Now, you've had 2 years under your belt. What have you learned about being Lieutenant Governor? What about that job have you learned that you didn't expect when you went in 2 years ago?
Well, I had worked as finance chairman for about 10 years under Governor Ramsey, and we had a close relationship, and we did a number of things together. So it wasn't a completely new adventure for me.
But you have so many other appointments as lieutenant and things to do as Lieutenant Governor that don't have anything to do directly with running the state Senate. I mean, you're on so many boards and commissions, and were you surprised to learn how many things you were on?
Yes, and how many appointments I had.
You mentioned being involved in the budget. Your counterpart in the House, the Speaker-to-be, Glenn Cassidy, is talking about the legislature, in particular the House, having a more expanded role into the budget going forward. What do you think about that? What's the Senate's role going to want to be with that?
Well, it's the governor's budget. It's the appropriations bill that we'll be dealing with, and we've always come to agreement between the House and the Senate during the last, at least while Governor Ramsey and Speaker Harwell were there. There weren't any major disagreements.
Also some talk about bringing back oversight committees, which had been quite common in the legislature. I think Mr. Cassidy would like to bring them back for TennCare corrections and oversight for family and children. The Senate never completely got rid of those. You've been doing them as subcommittees. Do you see the House doing it the same way, or are they going to be joint committees?
There'll be separate committees, and the Senate, of course, already has TennCare oversight, and it has corrections oversight, and of course we have the appropriations subcommittee and investigation subcommittee under finance. And
when you add committees, even on a subcommittee level, you're talking about adding additional staff, particularly in the oversight area, because that's more than just passing bills or considering bills.
Not necessarily. We'll use the same staff that the committee has. They'll just be meeting at a different time.
What's been your relationship with Speaker-to-be Cassidy? I know you've known him over the years. He's been in the legislature as you have been, but how is it changing now that he's the Speaker and you're the Lieutenant Governor?
Well, I don't think there'll be any change in our relationship. He's has a lot of experience in the House. The House is different from the Senate, and we'll work together and we'll get things done.
Sometimes as the session goes on, particularly late in the session, we get into the spring and the sap rises in the trees. You're getting close to adjournment. The houses get a little bit vexed with each other, and sometimes bills get taken hostage and things like that. Is it your role and the House Speaker's role to kind of keep those lines of communication open? And how do you work to do that, to make sure that the legislature doesn't sort of ball itself up to where it doesn't function very well towards the end?
Well, I think part of that is a little bit of prevention, and I'll work directly with him. My chief of staff, Rick Nicholson, will work with his chief of staff, Cade Sexton, and they'll get, we'll head off those type of things that can extend the days of the legislature. And
so the key to head it off is what? Keeping lines of communications open?
Open.
And how do you identify where problems are going to be? You got a pretty good idea where they might be coming, just because you hear the squawking going on down in the committees, or you hear it in the media about it?
Right. Yeah, that's the way.
What about Governor-elect Bill Lee? Did you know Governor Lee at all before he ran for governor?
I did. Not very well, but I knew him.
And your relationship since Election Day, has he talked to you several times? Y'all been in constant communication?
Right. And he's been very easy to work with, and I've been very impressed with his ability to pick things up. And of course, state government and politics is a little new to him. He has served on some boards and commissions, but when we get into the budget and things like that, he can pick things right up, not miss a beat. What
advice, if any, have you given him so far coming in? What have you sort of warned him about, just from what you've learned from being up on the Hill? Watch out for this, or be ready for that, this sort of thing.
Well, I'm there to help him, and certainly I mean, he would take advice well, but I haven't loaded him down with a lot of requests and things like that.
I believe Governor Haslam and previous governors for the last 2 or 3 have had sort of a weekly either breakfast or some other kind of meeting with leadership in both houses. I suspect you would recommend the incoming governor do the same thing. Have you had that conversation yet? Is that going to be part of his ongoing communication with your office? Yeah,
I have mentioned it, and also the other thing that the Governor Haslam did was on Thursday meet with the 2 speakers to go over what happened that week and what was coming up the next week.
And the idea in a lot of those meetings, as I understand it, was to be candid enough and no surprises. So,
right.
And most of it was considered to be sort of amongst the chickens, off the record to some degree. But how helpful is that? I mean, if you otherwise you might get surprised by things, and when you get surprised, that's always a problem. And when you're dealing between the executive and the legislature,
that can be. And there's sometimes things will come up that are totally unexpected, and in that case, we're usually informed directly from the governor, or we're informed by one of the governor's people, the chief of staff or the head legislative liaison.
Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is our guest on Inside Politics. We're talking about the upcoming 111th Tennessee General Assembly, which convenes early in January, high noon on January 8th, 2019. Back to continue our conversation with the Lieutenant Governor after you watch these messages.